We are Teachers College, the first and biggest school of education in the nation. Here, in a single square block in the heart of New York City, we have invented and reinvented the modern K-12 classroom and the community school. We've launched and reshaped so many fields of inquiry in education, health, psychology, policy, and leadership. And today, we're shaping the future in racial literacy, education in human sexuality, nutrition policy, community health, global mental health, and emotional and psychological resilience. From generation to generation, our faculty, students, and graduates have tackled society's most pressing challenges and improved the lives of the people and communities we've served. Think of us as an incubator and accelerator for creating a better world. So tune in to Teachers College, the premier address for informed conversations about how to create a healthier, better educated, more equitable, and more just world. No matter where you are, you're right in our neighborhood.
Good evening. Hello. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you joining us for the 7th Annual Edmund W. Gordon Lecture, presented by Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell, President of Spelman College. I'm Erica Walker, Director of the Institute for Urban and Minority Education, and also a Professor of Mathematics Education here at Teachers College. What a wonderful opportunity it is to welcome Dr. Campbell to Teachers College, even virtually. Over the years, Teachers College counts many illustrious Spelman alumni among its graduates. And as a native Atlantan, I can attest that Spelman's influence on our city, our state, our country, and the world is significant. There are so many reasons why Dr. Campbell is the perfect Gordon lecturer at this time. First, as our Teachers College president will tell you shortly, Dr. Campbell is the epitome of the ideals that UMI's founder, Dr. Edmund Gordon, for whom this lecture is named, and who joins us this evening, espouses. Second, as a mathematics education researcher myself, I can tell you that Spelman has had and continues to have an enduring impact on the mathematics and scientific fields through its outstanding leadership in supporting, nurturing, and promoting women in STEM. And third, Spelman as a top liberal arts college, top women's college, top historically Black college, has many lessons to share with all of us, but particularly lessons for institutions of higher education. Today's program will include a talk by Dr. Campbell, a conversation between Dr. Campbell and me about her ideas and commitment to the arts and sciences, and a Q&A period where you'll have the opportunity to pose questions. Please feel free to send any questions you have in the chat window on your screen. And after the program, we'll have a chance to talk more informally in a virtual reception, a salon, if you will, where we look forward to connecting more with all of you, but especially TC Spelman and HBCU alumni from around the country and the world. Now more than ever, it is important to deepen our connections and further our shared mission to advance learning, well-being, and justice. I know I speak for all of us at the Institute for Urban and Minority Education and Teachers College when I again say, welcome to President Campbell and to all of you joining us. I'll now turn it over to our Teachers College president, Dr. Thomas Bailey, who will introduce his fellow president, our speaker.
Hello, and welcome to Teachers College's 7th Annual Edmund W. Gordon Lecture. This year's lecture anchors our celebration of the centennial of the Harlan Renaissance, whose major figures included many members of the Teachers College community: painters Aaron Douglas and Charles Alston, the dance educator Beryl McBurney, and the poet and short story writer Gwendolyn Bennett. Our Gordon Lecturer this year is Mary Schmidt Campbell, the president of Spelman College, one of our nation's great liberal arts colleges, as well as America's first private historically Black liberal arts college for women. By way of introducing Dr. Campbell, I first want to call everyone's attention to some deep traditions that are being represented here today. The Gordon Lecture celebrates the life and work of the remarkable Edmund Gordon, who received his undergraduate degree from Howard University, another eminent historically Black institution in the 1940s. As he approaches his 100th birthday, Dr. Gordon continues to champion strategies for unleashing the talent and brilliance of disadvantaged young people of color. Dr. Gordon is the founder of UME, our Institute for Urban and Minority Education, which devotes research, teaching, and advocacy towards empowering communities of color. The current director of UME is Dr. Erica Walker, who worked with Dr. Gordon during her time as a Teachers College postdoctoral fellow and is now TC's Upton Chair of Mathematical Education and chair of our Department of Mathematics, Science, and Technology. Dr. Walker is known for her groundbreaking work on facilitating math engagement, learning, and performance, especially for underserved students. In her 2012 book, Building Mathematics Learning Communities, Dr. Walker offered insights and effective strategies for encouraging peer-to-peer learning. And that really does bring me to our Gordon Lecturer. Mary Schmidt Campbell's theme today is Students Teaching Students. While I do not know yet what her angle will be, I do know that Dr. Campbell has always believed passionately in the power of imagination and self-agency for young learners. Legend has it that as a young girl, Dr. Campbell would spend whole days in her neighborhood movie theater. On one occasion, she was so mesmerized by The King and I that she insisted on watching it twice in a row. Dr. Campbell has been empowering creativity and learning ever since. More than 40 years ago, she took the helm of the struggling Studio Museum of Harlem and transformed it into the country's first accredited Black fine arts museum. In 1987, she became the New York City's Cultural Affairs Commissioner, advocating for large and small arts organizations throughout all 5 boroughs. And in 1991, she became the innovative dean of New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, where she developed the NYU Game Center, the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music, the Moving Image Archiving and Preservation Program, and a joint MBA, MFA graduate film and business program. Notably, she chaired a Smithsonian Institution advisory board that laid the groundwork for establishing the phenomenal National Museum of African American History and Culture on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. As president of Spelman College since 2015, Dr. Campbell has enhanced the college's reputation as the nation's leading producer of Black women scientists. Now, she is developing a comprehensive strategic plan for propelling Spelman to ever greater heights. Dr. Campbell also remains a prolific scholar and writer. She received the 2018 Hooks National Book Award for her definitive biography of the great multimedia artist Romare Bearden, entitled An American Odyssey. I am proud, by the way, of TC's family ties to Romare Bearden. He was a protege of Teachers College graduate and Harlem Renaissance giant Charles Alston. As we celebrate the Harlem Renaissance today, I am proud to present a Renaissance maker in her own right, Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bailey, and thank you so much, Dr. Walker, for those very generous introductions. It is such an honor for me to be here speaking as part of the 7th Annual Edmund W. Gordon Lecture Series. Dr. Edmund Gordon is such a legend, such a pioneer, understanding his seminal role in conceptualizing and founding Head Start. You begin to realize the impact that he's had. And of course, as the founder of the Institute for Urban and Minority Education, he has shepherded impactful, important research on K through 12 education. So this is a real honor for me to be here. And it's an honor, too, to be at Teachers College. I have long been a fan of the work of the teachers, the administration, and the research and the scholarship that has come out of Teachers College. I can think of few institutions that are as important as Teachers College is today. So thank you. So given the stature of Dr. Gordon and Teachers College, I have to quickly confess that, yes, I am an art historian. I'm not a scholar of K through 12 education. My career has been in the arts, and now I have the great privilege of serving as the 10th president of Spelman College. As Dr. Bailey said, one of the country's leading liberal arts colleges, and a premier educator of Black women leaders. I'm not an education scholar or researcher, but I have had experiences throughout my professional career that have put me in close contact with teachers, principals, administrators, students, and families that make up our K through 12 universe. When I was at the Studio Museum in Harlem, we used to send working artists into the local public schools. As Cultural Affairs Commissioner, I had the great privilege of working with the late Richard Green, Dr. Richard Green, who was the superintendent of the schools and insisted that Cultural Affairs create programs for our young people who were homeless and living in hotels in New York City. We did that with some of the country's leading cultural institutions. As vice chair of the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities in the Barack Obama administration, I had the great pleasure with working with some terrific artists and patrons of the arts to establish something called Turnaround Arts, which was a program that took the arts and helped design programs to help turn around failing schools. As Dean of the Art School at NYU for 23 years, we launched a summer program for high school students, a program that became a major source for talent identification for the School of the Arts. So I just recite those examples to point out that over the years, I have come to have profound respect and admiration for those teachers, principals, and school administrators who bring their imagination, their skill, their passion, and their commitment into the classroom every single day on behalf of our children. And if there's a silver lining to this pandemic, it's that many more parents now have a new appreciation for what it takes to manage a classroom and create an environment for effective teaching and learning. No, I'm not an expert, but I am an ally. I'm an ally who feels a growing sense of urgency about the state of K through 12 education. And now, as a college president, a growing sense of urgency about why colleges and universities have a particular responsibility to participate in the involvement and improvement of urban education. I've come to believe that colleges and universities that champion educational excellence, equity, and access to excellence on their campuses should be at the forefront of that goal in our public schools. Why, you might ask? Why should colleges and universities, in particular a small liberal arts college like Spelman, bear that responsibility? If, as I suggest, we were to take on the responsibility of our students teaching students, how would we train them? How would we prepare them for the task? And as important, how would we measure success? And don't colleges and universities already have enough on their plates? Yes, our plates are full. But the answer is simple. We have no choice. For one, demographic changes are transforming the racial makeup and cultural identity of our citizenry, the electorate, and the composition of the public sphere. Consider, for example, the historic election outcomes in the state of Georgia. 2 years ago, the state of Georgia came close to electing an African-American woman, Stacey Abrams, and I have to say a Spelman alumna, as the country's first Black woman governor. When she stood in front of hundreds of Spelman students a few days after her loss to the man who is now the current governor, she told the Spelman students in the audience, "We may have lost the governor's seat, but we did not lose. We won." And by that, she meant we won with the realization that we have the capacity to make our vote count and our voices heard. Demographic shifts, in part, made that possible. Colleges and universities play a major role in the education of responsible, informed citizens capable of sorting fact from fiction. So as the demographics change, our responsibility to those changing demographics grows. A second reason for colleges and universities to concern themselves with K through 12 education is meeting the needs, our future needs of our workforce. The world's workforce needs are changing radically. Those without college degrees will find high-wage, high-skilled jobs foreclosed. High-skilled jobs will depend increasingly on the skills of a good liberal arts education, possession of an agile growth mindset that can embrace lifelong learning, comfort with complexity, an ability for critical analysis, the capacity to engage in cross-cultural exploration, the ability to solve problems, work on teams, collaborate, and the capacity for creative invention. Imagination, the ability to envision what is not there and move with confidence towards the envisioned goal, will be as important a skill as knowing how to code. High-tech leaders from Bill Gates to Yuval Noah Harari to Stanford business lecturer Tony Seba tell us that we're on the cusp of a major technological revolution. Whatever has come before, the internet, social media, will seem to be modest ripples in the face of the volcanic disruptions to come. We're told that artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing, advances in biotechnology will eliminate in the next 20 to 30 years 80 million unskilled jobs. Telecommuting, tele-immigration, robotics may eliminate some white-collar jobs as well. Yet, if we combine the changing demographics with the growing need for a college degree, the data suggests that we are far from meeting future needs. Consider these facts. In 2017, the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center reported that at four-year colleges and universities, the six-year college completion rate for Black students was 45.9%. The completion rate of Latinx students, 55%. College completion, by contrast, is 67.2% for white students and 71.7% for Asian students. These trends repeat themselves when we look at other types of educational credentials, such as certificates or two-year colleges. At two-year and certificate granting institutions, Asian and white students complete at 63 and 62% respectively. Latinx student completion rates are 45.8%, and for Black students, 38%. Black students not only complete at a lower rate, they are the group that graduates with the most debt. As demographics change, college completion rates for Black and Latinx students lags, and income inequality grows. Income inequality is greater now and growing more rapidly than 50 years ago. A 2013 study completed by Sean Reardon makes the point. In 1970, families in the 90th percentile of income earned 5 times as much as families in the 10th percentile. In 2013, top earners made 11 times what low-wage families earn. So why does that matter? High income predicts access to excellent educational resources and experiences. High income students are more likely to attend excellent schools, and schools in higher income suburban neighborhoods that typically have a high percentage of white students receive $53 billion more in public funding than schools in poor, urban, typically Black and Latinx neighborhoods. We know that income is the most reliable predictor of attendance at the country's most selective and academically highly ranked colleges and universities. High-income students are more likely to have had experiences that build soft skills necessary for success, not only in college, but in the workforce. So let's take a look at how that plays out specifically in the city of Atlanta, which very often is referred to as the Black Mecca. And let's look at our first set of slides. We're going to take a look at statistics for the high schools in Atlanta. One of the shocking things that I came to learn about the city in which I now reside is that of the 11 public high schools in the city of Atlanta, 8 of them are completely segregated. That is, they have no white students. And I have to give credit for the next 2 slides to Dr. Kamal Bob, who is Senior Director of the Constellation Center for Equity and Computing at Georgia Tech and Global Head of Diversity, Strategy, and Research at Google. Next slide. So how does that play out, that fact of the segregation of our Atlanta public high schools? If you can see this slide, you can see that there are some little circles in red and circles in blue. The circles in red represent white students, and these 3 red circles represent white students in North Atlanta High School, Grady, and in Classical School. Those were the 3 high schools that had white students as well as Black and Hispanic. And you can see that in Grady and North Atlanta, the white students are meeting their math proficiency at a rate of 70% and 80%, and at Classical, just over 50%. But if you look at the math proficiency rates for the students in the other 8 high schools, it drops as low under 10% in some cases in Washington High School and Douglas High School, Mays, Kipp Collegiate, Jackson High School, and even in those schools that are integrated, such as Grady or North Atlanta, Black students do not perform as well on their math proficiency skills as their colleagues, their white colleagues who are in those same schools. So, thank you. So Spelman College sits right in the heart of the west side of Atlanta, where Washington High School is, one of those high schools that you saw that has no white students and has extremely low passage of math proficiency rates. There are, in fact, a total of 5 schools in the neighborhood where Spelman is located, 1 elementary, 3 middle schools, and the 1 high school. When I came to Spelman, I was eager to get to know the schools better. And so I invited the principals from each of the 5 schools in what we call the Washington cluster. That's what they call these 5 schools. I invited them to come to dinner at the president's house. And my intent at the time of the invitation was to share with them all the great things that I had learned about how our students were working in the Atlanta public schools. And so we had dinner, and I had people on my staff share with them all the programs that we did, the chess clubs and the glee clubs and all the different programs that we did. And then by the time we got to dessert, I said to the principal, so now tell me, how can we be helpful to you? What is the one thing that you would like for Spelman College to do that would be helpful to you in your school? And as we went around the table and listened to the responses from the elementary school, the middle schools, and the high schools, they all said the same thing. Each of the principals said to us, teach our students to read. I was stunned by that response. I was stunned by that response because they, even in middle school and high school, they were saying that deficiencies in reading were hobbling the students in other areas, so that it's difficult to read a math problem if in fact your reading skills are not up to par. And that if that foundation of literacy is not there, then all of the other programs in the world are not going to be nearly as effective as they could be. So for those of us at Spelman who were sitting around the table, it really felt, that revelation really felt to us like a mandate. It felt like we have to do something. Here we are at a college that has a great education department with fantastic faculty, students who are dedicated to a sense of community service. And here we are, an educational institution in this neighborhood. It felt like a mandate for us. So we got to work. Our education department was able to identify an expert in literacy. And we put out a call to our students and we said, you know, who would like to come and be trained to teach literacy in public schools? 200 of our students showed up. We eventually trained about 100, 115 of them and deployed them into the local schools and called the program Spell Reads. So now I'm going to show you a video that was made by one of the schools, Hollis Academy, a middle school, and it was their way of saying thank you to us for Spell Reads. So let's take a look at the video.
The buses arrive awaiting students of the Michael Hollis Innovation Academy to dismiss. Simultaneously, the Spelman College students in the Spell Reads Literacy program from the Bonner Office of Civic Engagement arrive on campus. They are here to bridge the academic gaps by offering reading support to those students who may be in need. This addresses the critical benchmarks in a child's education. The value add is clear, as professional demands don't always allow educators to give students the extra attention they may need.
We partnered with the Spellman Reads program in order to best serve our scholars who are really struggling readers. And so the program has been awesome for them. They've been getting one-on-one support in addition to test prep and other strategies that will help them to perform better academically.
It's very important because a lot of these kids look up to us, and a lot of kids want to go to Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark. So we show them that they can be anything they want, and we inspire them to be the best of themselves.
Do you know what fortune means?
A fortune cookie?
That's an
Spelman has really added that extra punch that we needed with those students who are struggling and reading below grade level with the small group and the one-on-one tutors for our 2nd and 4th grade students. They've allowed those students to have an extra sense of encouragement and motivation with reading, and according to the teachers, they've also seen an improvement with the students' reading and comprehension in the classrooms.
The kids are learning and they're improving with their reading and stuff, but at the same time, we're also making personal connections with people in the community who we might not have even spoken to.
And then also the weight of the math.
Literacy tutoring is done not through a book, as you and I may recall, but through using a research-based app called BookNook, facilitated through the use of electronic devices such as laptops in this case.
The Spelman mentors, they're kind of cool, and it's fun working with them because we get to learn more stuff of reading, how to read yourself, not like a robot.
Students kind of get that one-on-one approach of instruction from a Spelman tutor that's not necessarily their teacher, so they get a little bit more comfortable than they would with a classroom teacher.
Okay, it's also on the top near the animal.
This? Yes!
I definitely see the sparkle in my kids. When they first found out that I graduated from Spelman, they were like, what, you went to Spelman? That sounds so far away. And they don't realize that it's right here in their community. So when you tell them about it,
and I mentioned all the different experience I had about at Spelman. They are so eager to go, and my boys are, they were really upset when they realized it was an all-girls school. And I said, well, you don't have to go to Spelman, but you can go to Morehouse. But just being at Spelman, it makes you feel all warm inside, and I'm so excited to be here right down the street and being able to see as an alum how they're changing schools everywhere.
These tutoring sessions are proving effective for the Hollis Innovation Academy. We can be assured that these Spelman students will return, as they know that making a difference in a child's life sometimes takes more than a day.
Well, thank you. I enjoy seeing that video every time I watch it. And they made a point that it takes more than a day. And in fact, we spent 2 years, the past 2 years, in those schools, and we wanted more. We were very grateful for that video, but we wanted a little more in order to measure our success. So let's take a look at the next couple of slides to see how well we actually did. As I mentioned, we had 115 of our Spelman students who went into the schools, and they served 103 students in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Next slide. Over the course of 2 years, we could see some measurable difference. So let's just take a look at the 3rd grade. The growth rate before spell reads, 0.66, during spell reads, and the grade equivalency before spell reads, 1.99, and the grade equivalency after spell reads, 3.12. Let's take the 5th grade. So the growth rate before spell reads, 0.53, during spell reads, 1.09, the grade equivalency before spell reads, 2.63, and 3.12 after spell reads. As you go up in grades in 7th and 8th grades, the differences were not quite so marked. So we feel strongly that after COVID, when we go back in, we will probably want to concentrate on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades because the intervention earlier is probably more impactful. Thank you. Now, COVID disrupted our ability to continue on scale. We still do have some students who are working with students virtually, but having 100 students, over 100 students out there has not been possible to continue during the disruption that COVID has brought to us. And we still have a lot of questions. Are the results lasting? Did we change habits? Can we scale up a program like that? Could we bring in another 100 students? Could we invite Morehouse? Could we invite Clark Atlanta? Could we engage the 57 colleges and universities that are in the metro Atlanta area and invite them to bring their students in? These are all questions that we would continue to interrogate as time goes by. In the meantime, we learned a great deal. We learned that teaching students how to teach reading is hard work for the learners and hard work for students. In addition to learning how to teach literacy, the task requires on the part of our students consistency, persistence, and most important, what we noticed was their deep caring for the students whom they taught. We learned that being dependable and showing up in the lives of those being tutored was as important as the tutoring itself. And when I listen to the Spelman students read aloud to the students they're tutoring, I can hear their joy in the act of reading and telling stories. Our experience with Spell Reads caused us to be alert for similar programs, and we didn't have far to look. A Spelman faculty member brought to our attention another program, this one for math proficiency, that originated at Wayne State for Detroit Public Schools. It's been successful for 30 years. Our Spelman math professor taught in the inaugural program 20 years ago when she was a PhD student at Wayne State. And she's recently proposed that we bring Math Core to Spelman. Let me share with you the way Math Core works. It's still students teaching students, but it's a little bit different structure. One of the great failures of our K through 12 system is that students very often do not receive the foundational math courses in middle school that enable them to take advanced math courses in high school that will prepare them either for college level studies in math or STEM fields that are so much in demand for the future workforce. At Spelman, we make use of preparatory high school programs and preparatory programs for high-performing admitted students, but Math Corps would enable us to start even earlier. Math Corps at Wayne State is located in their Center for Excellence and Equity in Mathematics, and it was launched by Steve Kahn in 1991. We believe that if something works someplace else, replicate it. And over the past 30 years, Math Corps has received excellent results, and the program has been replicated in several other colleges across the country. Some of their successes are test scores in Math Corps' 6-week summer camp rise from pre-camp averages of 25% to post-camp averages of 90%. In post-camp evaluations, 98% of the students give the program high marks. Since 1995, best estimates place the high school graduation rate for Math Corps students at about 90%. And over the last 5 years, Detroit high school students who had participated in Math Corps for at least 3 summers achieved a 21 median score on the ACT math exam, far above Detroit's overall average and on a par with statewide and national scores. So the model is deceptively simple. It begins with a group of math professors at Math Corps College who provide rigorous training in math and the teaching of math to their college students. During a 6-week summer program, the college students provide math instruction to a core of high school students during half the day. During the other half of the day, the high school students teach a core of middle school students. The accompanying math instruction accompanying the math instruction is a period of supervised recreation, so the entire day feels like going to camp with some math instruction. After the summer program is over, math instruction continues during the academic year on Saturdays. Participants and their families take a pledge to meet the participation requirement. This is the program we're hoping to bring to Spelman College and to the middle schools and high schools in our West Side neighborhood. Our faculty member, a longtime teacher in Math Corps, is helping us organize that and find the funding to stand that up in Spelman, hopefully the summer of 2021. But if COVID doesn't permit it, then we'll go ahead with it summer 2022. At the core of both Spell Reads and Math Corps is the fact of students teaching students. I recently had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Kahn virtually and to listen to his understanding of the particular skill that students bring into the classroom. And as I listened to him talk, I thought about the scholar Bettina Love, who talks about abolitionist education. And according to Love, abolitionist education believes in the ability of education to lift students beyond their expectation. Abolitionist education takes joy in the excitement of learning and love of the student. Abolitionist education inspires innovation and imagination in teachers who are looking for ways to lift. Abolitionist educators motivate themselves by what motivated Martin Luther King Jr. when he referred to a fierce urgency of now. Why do students bring such fervor? Because they very often have been recipients of abolitionist education themselves, and they are eager to pass it on. In closing this evening, I'd like to leave you with what we have accomplished in the past as a country, as well as what we've accomplished at Spelman College. In the past, when it comes to education, we've exhibited as a nation a will of steel. Spelman College was born out of a will of steel. The will of Baptist missionaries, 2 white women from Salem, Massachusetts, teachers who were determined to come to Atlanta to start a school for recently freed Black women. They called it the Atlanta Female Baptist Seminary. His school started in a cellar of a Black church Friendship Baptist Church, supported by the Black pastor, Father Quarles. The seminary eventually was named for an abolitionist family, Laura Spelman Rockefeller, the spouse of the school's benefactor, John D. Rockefeller. One of Alice Walker's fictional characters in the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel The Color Purple attends the school in 1924, and her letters refers to it as astonishing. W. Johnson Roundtree, a real 1938 graduate of Spelman College, in her memoir, A Mighty Justice, writes of Spelman that in the 1930s, the mission of the college was, quote, to train young Black women to think, to hold jobs, to become leaders. That was Spelman's mission back in the 1930s. Marshalling their will, women and men, Black and white citizens, created an astonishing college for Black women that continues to astonish 139 years later, serving 2,200 Black women. Sisterhood is critical to our success. Sisterhood, that peer-to-peer caring, means being ambitious not just for yourself, but for each other, of doing as much for others as you would to ensure your own success. We've institutionalized it at Spelman in sisterhood organizations like the Bonner Scholars, like Ford Motor Company First Generation Fellows, like our honor students and our social justice students, or our sister-to-sister alumni mentoring. We have created a culture of caring at Spelman College. Next slide. And this is my last and final slide. As a result, despite the fact that almost half of the students at Spelman are Pell eligible, the 6-year graduation rate for Spelman is 75%, 30 percentage points more than the national average for Black students and above the national average in general for students. That success rate is an act of will. Look at our 7 pride points. Number 54 in the nation among liberal arts colleges. Number 1 HBCU for the 14th consecutive year. A top performer in the country among liberal arts colleges for social mobility, and one of the most innovative schools in the country. Thank you. You can take down the slide. That is an act of will. We've seen that will elsewhere. After World War II, veterans received news of a new benefit, a GI Bill that paved their way through college. Much to the surprise of those who authored the GI Bill, millions of Americans took advantage of the opportunity, and millions of Americans were catapulted from blue-collar working class to multi-generational middle class. In my lifetime, when I was 10 years old, and I'm telling you my age now, in 1957, what was then the Soviet Union launched a self-piloted satellite that orbited the Earth. It was called Sputnik. Public outrage and political indignation in the United States ran high because our mortal Cold War enemy had outpaced us. The country's response educationally was immediate. A Republican president launched a new agency, NASA. Other federal agencies found money for math and science education, and local school districts plowed money into K-12 education. Public university funding was a top priority for state budgets during this era. Education was bipartisan because a Democratic president upped the ante and stated his intent was to put a man on the moon. Education was viewed as a public good, and we as a country invested in it. So here's the challenge I put before us now. I challenge us to marshal the will to play a role in achieving educational excellence in K-12 environment that bridges into our colleges and universities. I challenge colleges and universities, large and small, public and private, to take an active role in disrupting the trends that are hamstringing the prospects every day, right now, of students in many of our K-12 schools and communities. I challenge not only our institutions, but our students at our colleges who are motivated to serve, to take responsibility for those students who are coming after them, to hold out a hand and bring them along. I know we can do it. We have the wisdom, We have the skill, we have the students. All we need is the will. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Campbell. I know that everyone is applauding in their homes, and I wish we could see them do that. But that was such a wonderful, inspiring, thought-provoking speech. And I'm left with so many great themes that you raised. It's going to be hard for me to start our conversation with just one thing. Before I start, I want to just remind our audience that they can drop questions for our Q&A in the chat feature, and just let us know what your questions are while I begin this conversation with Dr. Campbell. I guess I'll start with the last thing first, which is, do we have the will? It reminds me of what Professor Asa Hilliard used to talk about when he was a longtime professor at Georgia State, about how we know the tools and we know what to do with many of them for the most part, but do we have the will? Can we marshal the will, as you said, to implement these important initiatives in support of young people's learning and well-being? So I just want to follow up with how you see Spell Reads and Math Corps eventually. I think it's so wonderful that Spelman students are going out into the communities, or were going out into the communities before the pandemic, and going to the schools. Is there a way that the students in the schools are able to come to Spelman and take advantage of the wonderful atmosphere that you have at Spelman?
Sure, and we've done that as well. We have a program called Sisters of the Soil, and it's a program where we bring middle schoolers up to the college, and they learn about food and how to grow food, and something about nutrition and the way that we get our food and distribute our food. And they spend an entire day with us. Our goal in terms of going to the school is that we understand that, at the end of a school day, we're trying to make it also convenient for the students who are there. They've done a full day in school, and to bring our students there, it felt simpler for us to just extend that school day and have our students be part of it, and also for our students to get to know the extraordinary network of teachers and staff supporters and principals who are there. One of the reasons I love that video is that because so many of the teachers speak up, and the staff people who are the assistants who are there in the classroom. So I want them to also understand that environment that the students live in, that is their world, and the people who populate their world, and to understand what those teachers and staff support provide every day to those students.
I really like the model that you had for involving the schools and finding out what the schools needed, having the principals come to your home, and thinking about all the various programs that could be done, but thinking to ask the principals what was their number one need. I'm wondering if there were other needs that they identified other than getting students up to speed with reading, and how Spelman supported those needs.
I mean, I don't want to be misleading. They were very appreciative of the other programs that were in the schools. And there was a whole array of programs. There were some choral ensembles, and there may have been some programs in STEM, and there were a whole number of programs. So it wasn't as if they were saying, oh, don't do those. Those are, those are no good. It was just that to hear a leader of a high school speak about literacy as urgently as a teacher in an elementary school was speaking about it is what was stunning to me. Because if a high school student still has literacy issues, he's going to have a very tough, he or she is going to have a very tough time in life, right? I mean, college is not an option, but even just graduating from high school, if there are literacy issues, that's going to be an obstacle.
I see. I want to shift gears a little bit because I was reading your book, which is amazing, on Romare Bearden. I'm just gonna
thank you.
American Odyssey. And you should know, President Campbell, that although I am a math lover, I like to think I have an artist's heart. I love art.
Well, Bearden liked to think he had a mathematician's heart.
I like that a lot. And so I'm wondering, shifting gears a little bit to sort of the arts at Spelman and how we can learn from Bearden and other artists. A lot of artists went to Teachers College, and we're actually going to feature them in our sort of Harlem Renaissance celebrations in the spring. Charles Alston, Alma Thomas, among others. And they were also educators. And so I'm wondering what lessons you think Romare Bearden and others might have for us in terms of bringing arts more fully into our world to help inspire some of these changes that you think we should have.
Yeah, so first of all, I have to say to Teachers College, I love those banners that you have up in the neighborhood with the Harlem Renaissance artists. I did get a chance to see those, and those are wonderful. So thank you very much for that, to highlight the real rich intellectual and artistic activity that was going on throughout the Harlem Renaissance is really important, because it was very serious and it was being done at a very high level. One of the very deliberate things that we've accomplished at Spelman is something called Arts at Spelman. And even before I came to Spelman, I had been invited by my predecessor to come and have a conversation with the faculty about the role of the arts at a liberal arts college. And so when I got there, we just continued the conversation, and we made the decision that our incredible strength in STEM, in science, technology, education, mathematics, and medicine, I should add, could be coupled with an equal strength in the arts, and that we would strengthen both even more. Because science and technology needs that sense of inventiveness, of experimentation, of taking risks. And, the arts benefits also from its knowledge and understanding of different disciplines that can inform its content, its process, its way of working. So we have found that by bringing that together on Spelman, it has just exploded the excitement about both science and the arts. And we're now on our way to building a building. We hope we can break ground this summer as we get through this, the challenges of now. But we're going to build a building that's called the Center for Innovation and the Arts. So it'll bring the two together.
That's actually a perfect segue to some of the questions we're getting in the chat feature. And someone actually just asked about this, is Valerie Rockefeller, who's asking for a bit more about how the arts connect Spelman to the local community. And if you could say a bit more about how the arts, what your vision is for the front porch for the Innovation Center.
Yes, I'm so glad she asked that question, because one of the things that we're doing is that we're not only building this building, but it's the first time we're building a building outside of the gates of Spelman College. Now, if you know Atlanta and you know Spelman, we are surrounded by gates.
Right.
So we are going to be on the corner of Lee Street and Westview. And in fact, the entire building has been envisioned to be a front porch for the community, between the community and Spelman College. So it is really an invitation also for the community to come in. And on the first floor, we anticipate expanding our museum. So we have a museum gallery on the first floor. We'll have public availability of performances and film screenings. We'll have a dance studio there. We'll have a cafe. So the whole idea is that the arts will be this invitation for our community to come and to participate in these community gatherings. So it's a very important part of the concept. Thank you, Valerie.
I love this idea of the front porch to the community. And I'm trying to envision how we might do something like that at Teachers College. I'm going to keep thinking on this. It's very inspiring.
Well, I love the fact that, I as I said, I live uptown. I live in Harlem. And so I love the fact now that I walk up to 125th Street and there's Columbia, right? And I can go into the cafe and I can go into the gallery, the Wallace Gallery, if I want to. Yeah. And I think that is a real change and shift in the way colleges and universities are thinking about their relationship to their communities. You see it at the University of Pennsylvania, you see it at the University of Chicago. So I think for universities to think that are in urban settings, this is an institute of urban and minority education. But for those of us who are in urban settings to think very deliberately, not only programmatically how we're relating, but physically how we're connected to a community is important.
That's exactly right. Given that we're in this pandemic and with all of its restrictions, what advice do you have for universities that are seeking to expand or deepen their school community partnerships at this time? It's been a real challenge.
It's been a real challenge. I spoke to about a dozen students recently who are from the program, the Bonner program that was the core of our spell reads. And I said to them, so how do you keep connected with your students? In fact, what they've done is they've each been assigned 5 students, and they each have connections to their students, and they are, many of them, maintaining these relationships. They have Zoom calls. They invite their students to choose a book. They read the book out loud to each other. Sometimes the book doesn't get discussed and they just have conversations. But what I found in the 12 students that I spoke to, I found an excitement in them for being able to connect with these younger students. I think they were mostly kindergarten, first and second graders. And they were just delighted to have the opportunity, even though it was virtual. So we can't do as much, but we can do something. We don't have to sever all ties.
Right. I think that sounds wonderful. We have a couple of really great questions and not a whole lot of time. So I'm going to choose a question from Vic Joshi, who says, thank you so much for this talk, Dr. Campbell. In light of your quoting of Dr. Love's notion of abolitionist teaching, what do you see as a relationship between abolition and meaning-making, art-making?
Meaning-making, art-making. Well, I look at anyone who brings to the act of making art a sense of commitment, the sense that they have something they want to express, accomplish, make, create, is meaningful, right? They bring a sense of care and attention to it. It's meaningful. And what I think we want as educators to provide is space for that. Space, time, and from an abolition point of view, a feeling of freedom to be able to say and make and do something that comes from the heart, not be constrained by what someone else thinks should be done or by something that's prescribed.
As we talked earlier, I am from Atlanta. I actually went to North Atlanta when it was North Fulton. So I know all of those schools. My siblings went to those schools as well. And there's a question here about if Atlanta has changed a lot, but maybe not so much. And so there's a question here about why do you suppose that there continues to be an absence of will to eliminate the achievement gap, especially in a city such as Atlanta?
So I have to say that after 5 years of living in Atlanta, that perplexes me. It really does. Because to understand the wealth gap, you have to understand that the average annual income for Black families in those segregated schools is about $27,000. The average annual income for Atlanta writ large is $170,000. So we're not talking about a tiny gap.
Right.
We're talking about the Grand Canyon of inequity. And it has, we know it's there. It's been persistent. It's existed over several years. And that's why I talk about will. What can we do to inspire? And the we is not, the we is colleges and universities, the we is businesses, the we is government, city government, state government. What can we do to inspire the will to change those really stark realities in Atlanta?
I think for our final question, there's a question from the audience where they're asking that you speak more about education as a public good. This is related to the last question. And also the human right to education and the role of local cities to fund education, especially for students of color.
Right. I'm reading the second part of that question, the role of local cities to fund education, especially students of color. Okay. So by public good, I mean that when you look at that statistic of the 11 Atlanta high schools, and you see that 8 of them are, completely segregated, and you see the performance gaps that result. The reality is that represents a reality in Atlanta, and that is that many people who have significant incomes don't send their children to public schools at all. They send them to private schools. And that is not, Atlanta is not unique in that regard. That, in fact, excellence, if people want excellence, they buy it. It is a private, almost luxury item. That's what Paul Tough refers to in his book, The Years That Matter. He calls excellent elite education as a luxury good because the cost is so high, right? That was not always the case in this country. We forget that. We forget that there was a time when in state budgets, state universities were at the top, the _1 budgetary priority. California, New York, big public systems, Wisconsin, public education was some of the best you could get, right? City College was what, the Harvard on the Hudson. It was free. This idea that somehow, if in order for us to have a really good education, we have to pay a lot for it, and everybody else, well, tough. You take what you get. It seems to me self-defeating for this country, right? You're not looking at our young people as the talent in the future of this country. You're saying I'm gonna carve out something for this little group over here and go make sure they do really, really well. And sorry for the rest of you. That feels to me wrong, and it also makes no sense economically in general. Even if you're looking at it from an economic point of view and saying, well, I really want to see our country become more prosperous, well, cultivate the talent.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Campbell, I want to thank you so much for your talk and all these wonderful words you've given us to think about and to work towards, all these action items. So thank you for that. I want to thank our audience for all of these wonderful questions and comments. I hear things are very active over on our YouTube feed, so we'll have to look at that. I just have a few thank yous. I'd like to thank all of our Institute for Urban and Minority Education staff and students, especially Honey Waldron, Veronica Holly, Sandra Rivera, and Angela Gooden for their help coordinating today's program and reception. I'd like to thank our wonderful TC events team led by Trish McNicholas for helping us to put on such an incredible program today. I would really like to thank the president and provost of Teachers College, President Tom Bailey and Provost Stephanie Rowley, and their offices for all of their support. And I especially want to thank Spelman College and the Office of the President, particularly Ms. Joyce Davis and Ms. Jarvis Richards. And thank you, Madam President, for joining us this evening. I hope that we can do this conversation and others like it in person sometime in the future. I want to thank everyone again for coming, and I would like to invite you to join us at a virtual reception. If we were at Teachers College, I'd say follow me down the hall, but we're online. So you can click on the link that's in the chat or the program description. And best wishes to everyone. All the best for everyone's health and safety, and all the best wishes to you, Dr. Campbell, and to Spelman College. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. A pleasure to be here. Thank you.